The silence was the loudest thing the last Stickman, known only as a for architect, had ever heard. It wasn't a peaceful quiet, it was the deafening void left behind after the Great Erasure, a catastrophic event that hadn't destroyed the world so much as it had simply forgotten it. Everything was a blank, sterile white, a fresh digital canvas stretching infinitely in all directions. I stood alone, a lone black line against an ocean of nothing, clutching a simple, trembling piece of charcoal, the only tool spared from the oblivion. He remembered the feeling of things, the warmth of the sun, the rough texture of wood, the dizzying joy of laughter, but the specific shapes and forms were gone, vaporized by the systemic memory wipe. His task was impossible, yet necessary. To draw the world back into existence, one flawed memory at a time. The weight of creation pressed down on his slender frame, forcing his hand to shake as he prepared to make the first mark, a single stroke of intent against the terrifying possibility of error. The first attempt was a disaster, a clumsy, lopsided circle that he intended to be the sun. As he pulled the charcoal across the white expanse, the line flickered, struggling against the nothingness. When he stepped back, the shape pulsed with a dull yellow light, but instead of radiating warmth, it emitted a sickly, heavy heat that made the white ground shimmer. He had remembered the intensity, but not the benevolence of the star. He had accidentally sketched in the concept of scorching instead of nourishing. A grimaced, quickly sketching a massive, clumsy hand and using it to smudge the light, softening the edges and diluting the aggressive yellow until it was merely a gentle glow. This first lesson was brutal. Creation was not simply replication. It was interpretation, and his interpretations were fundamentally biased by the trauma of loss. He realized that every line he drew was a moral choice, an imposition of his current solitary state upon the new reality. He desperately needed ground, something solid beneath his non-existent feet, something that wasn't the terrifying void. With newfound focus, he began sketching the concept of Earth, recalling the vibrant green and the comforting brown. His hand moved quickly, drawing erratic patches of color, but they immediately clashed. The grass he drew was too sharp, like jagged shards of emerald, and the soil was a sticky, quicksand-like mud. He paused, remembering an old memory fragment, a field where he used to play, a place where the edges were soft and the colors blended peacefully. He took the time to redraw the horizon line, making it less of an aggressive border and more of a gentle curve. Slowly, painstakingly, the jagged green softened, and the mud became firm ground. He created a small hill, a simple, comforting mound, and for the first time since the erasure, he felt a faint sense of stability. The air, which had been thin and odorless, began to smell faintly of damp earth and possibility, a testament to the fragile power of his art. The hardest memory to recapture wasn't a landscape, but a being, the first other Stickman. A remembered companionship, the ease of shared silence, but also betrayal and conflict. When he began drawing the shape, the familiar head, torso, limbs, his charcoal automatically emphasized the wrong things. He drew the figure with disproportionately large, grasping hands and a perpetually frowning mouth, a caricature of antagonism. As the figure solidified and began to move, it immediately lunged at A, radiating hostility. I realized he hadn't drawn a friend. He had drawn his fear of others, his post-apocalyptic paranoia made manifest. The ensuing fight was frantic, a dodging the aggressive swipes of the large hands. He didn't want to destroy his creation, it was too precious, so instead, he used his charcoal to rapidly draw chains of logic around the creature's limbs, restraining its malice. It was a temporary fix, a compromise, but it allowed him a moment to breathe and recognize the profound danger of drawing from corrupted memory. He decided that drawing complex beings was too risky for now. He turned his attention to objects, starting with the simplest. He drew a square house, recalling the concept of shelter and privacy. But when he finished, the house wasn't sturdy. It was flimsy, made of lines that wobbled and groaned under their own weight. He realized he had drawn the idea of a temporary structure, something to be abandoned, not a home to be cherished. He corrected it, adding thick, steady lines, a heavy roof, and a welcoming door, drawing in the concept of permanence and safety with every stroke. The house stood firm, a small beacon of resilience in the blank world. Yet, the house felt empty, and I realized that even the most perfect shelter was cold without the concept of community. He needed to create an environment where the other could exist without being a threat, a world drawn not from trauma, but from hope. A moved away from the frightening proximity of his aggressive other stickman and started sketching things that were universally comforting, things that felt less burdened by personal memory. He drew water, a long, winding river. He struggled with the texture, initially drawing it as stiff, glassy spikes, reflecting the danger of drowning he had once witnessed. After a meditative pause, he smoothed the lines, creating a fluid, calming motion, adding in the soft, rhythmic sound of running water, the sound of persistence. The river flowed through his small, constructed landscape, bringing the promise of life and connection. As the water moved, it softened the edges of his earlier, harsher creations, demonstrating the therapeutic quality of natural elements. The landscape was beginning to feel less like a sketchpad and more like a fledgling reality, a place capable of sustaining more than just himself. His eyes fell upon the subdued sun, and remembered the concept of night. With a swift, bold stroke, he drew a massive, soft circle of deep indigo over the yellow light, instantly plunging the world into twilight. He then dotted the sky with hundreds of tiny, shimmering points. Stars. He hadn't drawn them from memory of celestial bodies, but from the memory of awe, the feeling of smallness and wonder. As he stared at the newly created cosmos, he realized this was the key, drawing the feeling behind the object, not just the object itself. He decided to retry the concept of companionship, this time drawing not a physical form, but an abstract entity of kindness, a simple, glowing orb of gentle light. The orb settled next to his lonely house, radiating a soft, non-judgmental presence, and the architect of dreams, felt a wave of relief wash over him, knowing he wasn't truly alone in his grand, terrifying art project. The first memory he intentionally excluded from his new world was the Tower of Ambition. He remembered its height, its complexity, and the way it made every stickman below feel insignificant. It had been the center of the old world's woes. His charcoal hovered over the spot where the tower's memory lingered, and he felt the temptation to redraw its magnificent lines. The sheer artistic challenge was appealing. But he resisted, intentionally sketching a flat, simple prairie instead, a place where all stickmen would stand on the same level ground. This act of intentional omission was perhaps the most profound act of creation he had yet performed, signifying a commitment to a better reality over a mere recreation of the past. The void where the tower should have been was now a space for horizontal connection, a testament to humility and shared space. He continued his work, drawing simple, functional tools, a shovel, a hammer, a rake, imbued with a memory of purposeful work rather than drudgery. He then drew simple seeds, embodying the memory of growth and future. The world was a patchwork of memory and deliberate redesign, a fragile tapestry held together by his will and his trembling lines. The aggressive other stickman, still contained by the chains of logic, watched him with large, frustrated eyes. Anew he couldn't leave his initial mistake contained forever. He had to reconcile with the memory of conflict. He approached the chained figure, charcoal ready, not to erase, but to re-edit the design. He slowly softened the large hands, shrinking them to normal size, and turned the frown into a neutral expression, adding in a single memory of shared laughter, a subtle stroke of joy. The chains dissolved, and the other stickman stood free, looking around the new simple world with curiosity, no longer an aggressor, but a potential co-inhabitant, marking a true rebirth for the architect of dreams. This process of drawing, correcting, and forgiving his memories continued, each new object a careful negotiation between what was and what should be. The world of A was small, simple, and still predominantly white around the edges, but it was his, built on the courage to face his own broken recollections and redraw them into a hopeful, functional reality. He had created not a monument to the past, but a simple, open-ended sketch for the future.